We're going to be talking about organizational learning. So what we would like to do is to dividing ourselves into 4 groups. Some of you are going to be talking on how do we prepare ourselves, how do we prepare to be able to be more effective. A second group is going to be looking at the internal resources within the organization. So how do we engage our colleagues? How do we make sure that we have the resources to do what we want to do? A third group is going to be looking at the externals. What do we get from other people, from other organizations who are going to be helping us become a learning organization? And the fourth group is going to be looking at how do we measure, how do we know we're on the right track? And so we start right now with the group, and then we come back to the plenary and we hear what are the ideas that are coming out. Starting with the red group, how do we prepare ourselves?
Started by sharing a definition of organizational learning in terms of preparing ourselves. Often KM was not introduced by management, but by individuals in the organization. Emergency situations like COVID may trigger the awareness that sharing information and knowledge is useful and needs to be facilitated, and not only done by KM professionals, but it's rather a practice, a behavior that one should try to gradually introduce in the organization. Opportunities for KM people to shine as leaders, leading by example, easier to sell learning than a rather abstract concept as knowledge management.
One of the points that you're saying is engaging everybody. It is not just the KM, but the whole organization. Now that was also the theme of the second group, the blue ones. How do we engage our colleagues? How do we make sure that everybody's on board?
Collected several points. Which resources do we have? At the current COVID situation, digital online tools are much more important and widely used than before. This gives us challenges, but of course it gives everyone anywhere in the world the possibility to join easily without a lot of costs. And the knowledge transfer, this is somehow easy as a process to transfer information, knowledge between experts and those who want to learn. But the crucial thing is to have it very, very quickly. Fast learning is important. And the same as a corporate culture. Without trust, without appreciation, knowledge management or knowledge transfer or organizational learning won't work. A community organizer or a moderator is essential to drive knowledge management, especially for communities of practice. It's necessary to build trust. We should recognize the knowledge or give some appreciation to people, ideally from the top management. This is not only helpful, but also a precondition. Of course, necessary to talk and understand the problems in face-to-face meetings, which we can also do online nowadays. When we understand the problems, then we can check how knowledge management can help. And on the pitfall side, pure extrinsic motivation by providing monetary systems, by providing any kind of rewards, incentives might work very quickly, but only for a short period of time, and it's not sustainable.
We go to the third group. How do we engage people in other organizations, externals?
Our group talked about engaging other stakeholders for what some tools and techniques were to engage early, openly, from that sort of culture side, to really include them in the design process, being really intentional about it. Advisory groups that are external who can continue to feed into your system. Consultation can be incredibly valuable, but has a couple of potential pitfalls. If you really don't intend to actually take the input and be responsive to it, is nothing worse than asking stakeholders and trying to work with different communities, getting their input, having them take the time to give it, and then not executing on it. Sometimes consultation can take too long. Narrowing as soon as possible within the means that you have to do it. Active feedback loops, some really consistent ways for them to be feeding into the system and sort of adaptively manage faster as needed.
At the yellow group, how do we know if we are on the right track? How do we measure? How do we make sure that we are not deviating or losing time?
Is it the process or the impact? What is more important? That, to monitor and measure results, KPI, key performance indicators, they are very important when you're designing a learning initiative, but also very difficult to find out what these performance indicators would look like. Using LMS to monitor and measure results, but recognizing also that these technology measure process, but not the impact. Setting a personal goal as part of your measuring result. Push and pull learning. Most of our indicators will be good for push learning, which is the organization wants you to learn. It is difficult to do for pull learning, which is now what the individuals want to learn and how are they learning and what are they learning. Feedback form for push learning balls in your performance evaluation, set up these HR processes where in your personal self-assessment you're talking about how you have used these learnings and kind of also measuring that, how many views, how many downloads, or how many communities of practices were created. These can also be indicators. Measuring impact is always better than measuring process, but it is also more difficult to measure. And one common failure of measuring learning initiatives to actually measure the impact or measure the outcomes of your learning initiative. Those all have a cost implication, but it also has an implication in terms of staff people. And
but still we are able to come with very interesting ideas. I really find it inspiring to hear. So we are still open. We have space. You are welcome to come with an idea so that throughout the whole world, throughout the whole day, we are able to celebrate the 20 years of this group. I thank you, all of you, for your time. Thanks for your contributions. Thanks to everybody for joining and sharing your ideas. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.